pronounced in men than it is in women, so it's a little bit easier to find. The thyroid cartilage will go up and down as you swallow. Okay? So it is shaped like a teepee on the anterior aspect of the neck. Joe, can you slide down just a little bit? Are you comfortable lying flat, or do you need to fill up your knees? So the only reason I had him slide up is his head was kind of falling back, and we want to have those anterior structures relaxed a little bit. Now, the reason that we palpate these are for a number of reasons. Does anyone know who MacGyver is? Of course. So, like, MacGyver would be using these landmarks to do a tracheotomy out in the field with somebody. So the trachea actually has those rings, and that's where they do a tracheotomy, is between those cartilage rings. People who have cervical fusions, there is a way that is an anterior approach, and there can be a lot of scar tissue and adhesions in the front of the front of the neck, and so that's another reason why we need to palpate these structures. If we're seeing somebody who has swallowing problems, the speech and language pathologist will work on swallowing, but we may be working on the motor control of those muscles. So we may need to be able to identify those structures so that we can work with the person to make sure that they have good oral facial motor control, because that would fall within our wheelhouse. Okay? So there's a lot of really good reasons to palpate these structures. They are super sensitive. So these 4 things, you need to be really present, not be taking notes, not be looking at your notes, be looking at your patient's face. Am I setting you up for, like, I'm coming in? Because it is super sensitive. Do palpate them on yourself first, just so that you know where they are, and then go ahead and palpate on your patient. But I just ask that you be very light touch with your hands finding these structures. And you know how, like, I am equally guilty of, like, okay, you know, here are the wrist extensors, and I'm looking elsewhere, and I'm kind of just wagging them while I'm talking. Don't do that with the neck stuff, okay? Because it's just a little bit tender. I say all this, and some of you are going to leave today sore, so I'm trying to impress upon you the importance of this, okay? So go ahead and swallow for me, Joe. Okay. So, and go ahead and swallow again for me. Okay. So I know that I'm on his Adam's apple, which is his thyroid cartilage. Now I'm going to come just a little bit inferior to that, and go ahead and swallow for me. Now, while his thyroid cartilage will go up and down when he swallows, his cricoid cartilage is the structure just inferior that won't. And you're coming just off of that, like a TP again, okay? If I go even further inferior, I'm going to start to feel the rings of his trachea. So have any of you seen the flexible tubing that's used in plumbing that's metal and it has those rings and you can turn it? That's what your trachea feels like, okay? So you're going to feel those rings as you're going down the neck. Okay, we will have no barfing in here. Okay, so Adam's apple, which is the thyroid cartilage, we're going to come just inferior to that, and that's going to be the cricoid cartilage. Inferior to that is going to be the trachea, and we're feeling those rings. Now the rings run horizontally, so we're going to be palpating superiorly, inferiorly. Okay, now the last structure is the hyoid bone. So the hyoid bone is horseshoe shaped and is involved with muscles of speech and of swallowing, and it's going to be tucked up into that submandibular fossa, okay? And it's pretty high up there. Now, so what you're going to do, are you doing okay?
Yep.
Okay. So I'm gonna take my thumb and index finger, come in and go into that submandibular fossa, and what I'm trying to do is, if this is the hyoid bone, I'm trying to come in with my fingers and have it be under that hyoid bone, okay? Actually, the hyoid bone would be shaped like that, and I'd be coming under it like this, okay? I can't do it with my hands very well. And what I want him to do is swallow, and I want to feel equal pressure on my thumb and index finger as he swallows. Okay? Because if someone has had a stroke, it may be that when that person swallows, one side is weaker than the other, okay? Or there's not control of the other. or if it's spastic, we'll actually feel it move more vigorously on one side than the other. So again, I'm coming in. Okay, go ahead and swallow for me. Good. And relax. And your perfectly normal hyoid bone movement. Okay? So let's go ahead and review them to get ready for class. So again, those are, you're going up and under. Thankfully, you guys all seem pretty healthy today, so hopefully you don't feel anything. But if you're sick or have a head cold, this is a common place where you'll feel them be a little bit different. Remember, they're going to be those grains of I almost said grains of grass, grains of rice. Okay? Then we've got our superficial cervical, which are going to be in the proximal part of our sternocleidomastoid. So you're going to find your mastoid, you're going to come down into the SCM, and you're just going to roll your fingers. Now, a lot of you move your fingers way too fast when you palpate. Make sure that you're slowing down. I don't know how many of you, like, do you remember going to the doctor's office and having somebody check your lymph nodes, and they're like, boom, boom, yep, you're fine. You're like, you weren't even on a lymph node, much less being able to feel if they're swollen. I don't want that to be you. So I want you to take your time and feel them. So the superficial lymph nodes are going to be in the proximal part of your sternocleidomastoid. Again, if you're palpating bilaterally, move one hand while the other hand is stationary, and then move the other hand while the first hand is stationary. Okay? The deeper ones are going to be deep to the sternocleidomastoid. So while we've been palpating all of these lymph nodes with our hands very flat, what are we going to do to get to those deeper ones? Thank you, Amy. We're going to have to change the angle of our hand, and now we're palpating through the sternocleidomastoid to feel for those bumps through the muscle, and those are going to be distal. Okay? Cool? Okay. Now I think we're done. We're not done. That's a good start. Let's do pulses and